Hello and welcome everybody to Disruption Forum Engineering Horizons. We are so glad to have you here today for our very last event this year. And we are ending this year with a bang because we've got an amazing lineup of speakers from companies like Nubank, SourceGraph, Akinova, and Wowzy, ready to dive into some of the most exciting topics in engineering right now. We'll be covering, well, basically everything, from building smarter MVPs and cleaning up data to keeping teams motivated and overcoming challenges with staff augmentation. A big shout out to all of our speakers today, and thank you so much for coming to join us and share your expertise. Now, without further ado, let's kick things off with our very first session on smarter product development and getting MVPs right. Grab your coffee and let's get started. Because today I have with me Todd Yates, Chief Technology Officer at Transact, Erika Rice-Sherpels, Head of Engineering at SourceGraph, and Mahmoud Galal, Software Engineering Manager at Kitopi. My name is Dominika Schenkelbach, and I will be your host for this session. And in my daily job, I support Netguru clients with various consulting services, which means that I did build quite a few of those MVPs myself, and I know how challenging they can be. So I would love to start today at the very beginning and ask you, how do you decide what should go into your MVP and what shouldn't? How do you find the balance between the features and the speed of development? And Erica, I would love to start with you because I do know you have some insights to share.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dominica, and thank you everyone for having us today. So when I think of an MVP, one of the phrases that really sticks with me is simple, lovable, and complete. So an MVP shouldn't try to do anything too exciting. It should be something that customers would actually enjoy using, but it also should solve some problem completely. And what that problem should be something you have a critical question about. It's a risk, or it's an uncertainty, or maybe it's just a disagreement in your team, but the MVP should help you move forward in deciding what to build next. But I'd love to hear what other folks think.
Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's hard to define. I know there's a lot of historical discussion around like what percentage of the project do you need to estimate for MVP. It's really hard to define what percentage is. It's really like Erica said. Spend time with your customers and find out what are the basics that they're looking for in your application, and target that. Really defining the scope and design at the front of what you're going to start with is critical to any development to be successful, especially from a startup or a early funding stage.
All right, Mahmoud, how about you?
I totally agree. Like half the solution is finding the right problem to solve, right? So asking the right questions to the customers. Also, like people are sometimes stuck with solutions, right? Love the solution. They need to be able and open to pivot at any moment based on the customer feedback. So you must listen really, really careful to the customers.
Mm-hmm. So you do user research before you design your MVPs?
For sure. Like that's the first step, test, and validate.
Okay. Todd, Rika, you as well? Is user research a standard step?
Not for us. So we're a pretty small and scrappy organization, but what we do is we're building developer tools. So we start with a lot of our internal intuition, but we also know that we're not every developer. So we start by building something we internally find compelling, and then we start pulling in our customers in early access programs to get their feedback early. So we go for more very early feedback than pre-building research.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say the same for us. We don't have the luxury of kind of creating from zero internally, or even starting off with hey, customer, give us your idea. What we do is we pretty much take an educated guess at what we want, what we think the MVP application needs to be, and then we spend a lot of time validating that with customers to make sure we're on the right track.
Okay. And how do you validate?
Yeah, that's the charge for the design team, right? Making sure that we go through iterative design, and before the first line of code's done, making sure that our UX UI people and our user design research has had a lot of back and forth with clients to make sure we have a complete kind of workflow and design before we turn it over to the devs.
Okay, love it. And do you have any other tools or practices or approaches that you like to utilize when designing your MVPs?
Well, so one just very boring practical one is for us, we are mainly building things within the framework of an existing product. So we rely heavily on feature flags to roll things out to either a limited audience or more often a hand-selected audience who we can walk through the MVP in a way that they can understand its limitations and shortcomings, but also get access to it and play with the real thing and give us feedback directly. So I love feature flags.
Okay.
Yeah. For us, we are.
Sorry, Mahmoud, go ahead.
For us, we are doing a little bit separate things. Like sometimes we build landing pages and see how the customer will act on this landing pages. We do have like a quite huge number of employees, so sometimes we run things internally to see how the employees will react to the application before going even like, let's say, beta release. And then we do have some segments of the users. That's our alpha. If everything went fine, we go to use feature flag to actually A/B test on a larger segment of users. So there are many ways to validate your ideas.
Todd, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I completely agree with feature flags and what we typically do, depending on what our goal is for the end state of the application is. We try to kind of set levels or expectations with clients, saying that this is going to be the basic software version that's coming out, and then over the next year we're going to release the professional or the elite or whatever nomenclature our design team decides on. But that's all done through feature flags. That we are working on the next set of application features, even while we're implementing the MVP.
I would love to also go back to something Mohammed said about landing pages. So that made me realize that another way we do MVPs, it's not always building like software. I mean, it's all software in the end, but like we will sometimes utilize sign-up lists as sort of a very cheap MVP to see if there's interest in something from customers. And we're not doing it just to gauge interest. We legitimately will give these people access when we end up building it, but it's a really good way to see, hey, is there a there?
Okay, and I would love to go back, Todd, because you mentioned timelines. Maybe we will release something better next year. Do you have a timeline in your head for how long MVP should take to build and test?
No, that's typically, like I said earlier, I get a lot of pressure, especially from non-technical side of the house, right? For our sales team and our customer implementation team. Tell me a date when you're going to have this feature done. But we typically don't commit to dates or timelines until we've done the research and we know what's going to be minimally viable for the customer. It's hard to kind of guess up front. You can give ballpark estimates of based on your team and capacity and velocity. But until you really have that final kind of wireframe design done and the workflows done, it's really hard to give a finite timeline for that design.
Okay, and this is on the other hand the luxury that we don't have as a service provider that is fully on your side as the client. But I do love to hear it, and I would like to move on. So how do you decide that the MVP was successful? When do you say, all right, it's good enough, let's start building it? Do you have a specific moment in time or a specific goal that you hit? Erica, maybe let's start with you.
I can jump in. So what I look for most is like when we get like a wow moment or something that starts taking on a life of its own. Like I spent a lot of my career at Google, and there it was all about the metrics. You would put something out, you would do the A/B test. If A did better, you'd go with A. If B did better, you'd go with B. And I love that when you have that scale and that data, it's, kind of a gold standard. But when you don't have that, I think looking for like something where somebody's like really like, I will crawl through glass to get to this MVP, even though it's half baked, and I will hold on to it when you try to take it away from me. And that's a very high bar, but when you hit that level of enthusiasm, you have something worth investing in. So we're doing some very early API explorations for around AI at SourceGraph. And we're seeing this, we're seeing people who are like, no, don't take this away from me. I know you said this is the early access version and you're changing the API. I don't care. I'll rewrite all my things. Just don't take it away from me. So that's a huge positive side.
Oh, that must be such a great moment. Mahmoud, do you have a similar approach?
So usually it depends on the metrics you add, right? So it depends on the application. So some applications you are looking for retention, you want to run the MVP a little bit more. Critical metrics is the NPS score for the customers that you have. So a lot of feedbacks. Many people create MVPs, but they are like missing adding the analytics, see the conversion rate of your application, see where are the drops in your application, and try to iterate on this like small steps, micro funnels in your application to make things grow better. So this is a common mistake I saw, and like this is where we can add success rate, right? So we add goals in the beginning, and based on the goal we want to achieve, and that's where we want to go.
All right. Todd, what's your wow moment?
Ultimately, for us, it's measuring success for the application as our clients excited about it and willing to pay for it, right? Especially for an MVP, when we launch, our customer implementation process with that, when we see a funnel and a timeline of implementations for that particular software, we know that we've made the right decisions and the right choices because customers are excited about it. That certainly funds and fuels our next level of commitment to building out the rest of the application as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. And because we were also talking about it before when we first met, I would love to hear more about your approach to scaling up your MVPs, and how do you decide what's a prototype that can be thrown away, and how do you move from this MVP phase to a full-scale product?
Yeah, I don't think, in the startup world, there's really not the ability to throw away a prototype MVP, right? We're either all in on the MVP or not. And hopefully that we've done our user research up front and know that our time has been well spent. But really, and I hate to kind of keep beating the same drum, but for us, the customer expectation and desire drive all of our production. And so when we are working on MVP, we're working closely with our product owners, designers, sales engineers, implementation engineers, to make sure that we're in the right feedback cycle with the client. And then, like Mahmoud said earlier, we spent a lot of time with our clients making sure that, we've introduced things to them that they're excited about. That cycle doesn't stop. It's not like we stop the design phase and then work on engineering in a vacuum for the next 6 or 7 years, but it's a constant feedback cycle, iterative cycle with the client ongoing.
All right. So if you don't get this wow moment with the customer, we just iterate until we find it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Erica, how about you?
Yeah, I'm also in a startup, so we're in a similar situation. Like once code has touched users, we very rarely throw it away. We iterate on it.
Okay.
But I would have to nuance, like this is certainly not without cost. Like it's great for velocity, but I'll just use a specific example. We have, I'm not even going to guess, at least 5 or 10 places in our code where we're parsing model IDs for different LLM models, because each one of those things started as an MVP that got into the wild and we built on it. So we actually had to step back at some point and say, how do we refactor this? How do we pull this out? So if now we support slashes in addition to colons or whatever you change in your parsing, you don't have to update all those places. So we do tend to mostly take the march inevitably forward approach, but sometimes that means you're building up technical debt that you have to be sure to go back and pay when it starts causing you problems.
Yeah, and how do you manage this technical debt? Is it a set piece of each sprint or a different approach?
That's a great question. So for me, there's 2 things that I look at. One is I try to encourage my engineering org to build about 25% of project time in for things that will increase engineering velocity in the future.
Okay.
This isn't all refactoring. This includes documentation. This includes testing, the things you should be doing all the time anyway. But it's meant to be generous enough that you feel like you have time to clean things up a little as you go along. The other thing that I really encourage is that if we want to have a project around cleaning up technical debt, it should really have customer and business value too. So for example, this model config parsing thing, what this allows us to do is add new models more quickly because you don't have to update as many locations in the code. And so, yes, it's technical debt reduction, but it's also customer value because they can get models more quickly. So I try to do those two things to kind of provide some balance. Sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and clean up a big mess, but you know, if you are doing it as you go along, you can get pretty good coverage.
All right. Mahmoud, I would love to hear from you. How do you and your team manage it?
So for technical depths, we are using ADRs while we are like designing a project from scratch or like agree on architecture at specific. And with every decision we are making, we are writing some sort of historical data, at least for us, like why we took this decision right now and what is the consequences, right? And some of these consequences are tech debts, right? So we keep track of our tech debts. We have backlog of it. And we do have agreement with our stakeholders. We have arrangement that every quarter we do have 20% of our time like tech debts, and we prioritize the tech debts on our roadmap, similar like any other feature. Because in the end, tech debts can like bite us, right? So it can really slow us down, really cause problems that we can spend many months trying to solve it. So we are trying to manage it really well.
Okay. Todd, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I'd say, you know, a combination of things. So our technical debt we treat just like any other feature. We refine it and prioritize it and keep it on the plan going forward. It's nice to have the capacity to do it a little bit along, but that rarely works, especially when you were in like sales season or what we call our critical feature season, right? So sometimes we just have to kind of take a step and say, look, our technical debt, the weight and value of the improvements from our technical debt would far outweigh us, you know, doing any major feature release this next sprint. So we're just going to take an entire sprint and work on technical debt. That happens occasionally when that builds up in the back. But yeah, that's keeping track of it and treating it just like you would any other issue or request or anything like that is kind of critical to kind of moving the product forward.
So don't sweep it under the rug. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Keep it at least at the back of your head.
Exactly.
All right. Love it. We have 10 minutes left, and I would like to remind the audience that they can also ask questions to you on the LinkedIn page. So, dear audience, please feel free to do so. And in the meantime, I would like to ask each of you, what was your biggest, let's call it a challenge, not to say a failure, with an MVP that you've designed and developed, and what you learned from it? Can you share? And Mahmoud, maybe let's start with you this time.
Yeah, I would go with like choose your audience well. We did a project where we tried like some sort of group order, for example, right? And we tried it in offices, right? It worked really well. However, our like main audience were not offices, right? We were B2C company. So when we tried to make it in public, it didn't go as much as expected. So at this moment, we had two choices, either to go and change our plans a little bit, expand our segmentation and go beyond B2C, or to try to adopt the feature to make it more attractive to the customer. And actually, like we made pivot in this case, and we tried a little bit to move from being only like a delivery app to become more of social application to support B2C, B2B, B2B2C, and like to expand this feature and build application around it. So that was one of the biggest learning, like don't stick with one segment, but like expand, explore more people.
Okay, great, love it. Erica?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about an MVP in infrastructure because most people don't realize
Please
we
do.
necessarily even do that. And so I'll start with how we failed, and then I'll sneak in a little bit of how we finally succeeded. So we started by building what was really what I would more think of as a proof of concept. It was building out a technical part of the system, but not necessarily something that added any value on its own. So it didn't have that complete aspect of simple, lovable, complete. So that was really our failure, was focusing on building just like a technical proof of concept, which those can be valuable, but they're not the same thing as MVPs. What we ended up doing that was more successful was finding ways to pull out subsets of this large infrastructure project where we could break it up bit by bit. So first we implement ACL checks and see if we can build something there that's compelling. Then we looked for, this was for a social graph application, actually Google Plus for anyone who remembers that. So then we looked for followers and implemented a way to do followers more efficiently. And so we broke it up by actual application functionality, and that was much more successful than trying to break up the MVP into technical pieces.
All right, and I would actually like to build on that, because you clearly differentiated between a proof of concept and an MVP. Can you elaborate on this a little bit? How do you define the boundary between the two?
Yeah, for me, I would say a proof of concept is something that's answering a specific question. It doesn't need to be technical, although it often is. So it's like, can we actually build this? Or like, will this actually get attention in the market? But it's not necessarily something that stands on its own and delivers value. I think an MVP is something that should, even if it's just the tiniest subset of the value you want to deliver, it should deliver at least that subset of the value completely. And if not, then it's more of a proof of concept if it's answering a key question, but it's not delivering value on its own.
Okay, love it. Thank you. Todd, how about your challenges?
Yeah, I would say, recognize where you have a lack of resources or a lack of capability when you start your project. When I took over the roles of CTO for Transact almost 3 years ago now, I had a brand new development team, a really solid DevOps team, and no design team or research team or even product owners. And I was given the task for rebuilding from scratch, major applications. So I looked around and said, I've got a really good skeleton of a dev engineering team, really good DevOps, but no UI UX experience at all on my team. Now I can go out and spend 6 months trying to assemble that, or I can go and work with a partner to come in and kind of set that framework and train my team, and then get the experience kind of handed over to them for the engineering team to make them a little more senior and a little more seasoned in the process. So recognizing the challenges up front will save you a lot of time and heartache in the back end.
Okay, and what did you choose? Did you choose a partner, or did you choose to build it up yourself?
Chose a partner, worked with Netguru.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we had a 6-month design process and training for our product owners that was heavily involved with our clients, and lots of good foundation work for setting up what the project needed to be for MVP, and that was very successful. We grew out our team, but a very successful product launch for 2 years now.
I'm so glad we could help and turn it into a success. It's really great to hear that. We have no questions from our audience, so maybe last very open question. We have 4 minutes left. Is there any last piece of advice that you could give to our listeners on how to build the MVPs right? The one most important thing that comes to mind. Erica.
You don't want to add that. Whatever it is, you're going to try to increase your scope. So you don't want to add that. And you don't want to add that either. I think it's really just keeping that scope constrained, which doesn't mean you can't change as you learn things, but that is always the temptation is, oh, this is critical. We must add that. And then when you step back and look at it, you're like, well, really, that's not critical to an MVP, but you will always be tempted. I am always tempted. Sometimes I give in to that temptation and I regret it. So don't give in to the temptation to add more.
Okay, so stick to minimum in the MVP.
Yes, it is so hard, but it's so
It
important.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
totally agree with that 100%. And you have to watch for that injected work from all comers, right? Your dev team will decide in the middle of the project, it would be great if we could do this too. Or you might have the product owner that all of a sudden decides, if we could just add this one little thing, it would make the product more valuable. But all of those things detract from your ability to make your original MVP quality, right? So watching for that injected, distractions from all sources is critical.
Okay. Mahmoud, what's your opinion?
Like from my side, I think we always think like MVP is only one unit in the company, but it's a company full of many units that you can use to validate your ideas, not only building the software itself. Like you can validate using designs, research outside. Without writing any line of code, you can have many ways. You don't need to build the biggest application, like let's say we are food delivery application right in the end. So if you want to do MVP, you don't need to do integration with restaurants. You can do like take the orders, call the restaurant by yourself and do the order. Like you don't need to build everything from scratch. You need to just validate what's useful to the customer in the easiest way.
Okay. Okay, we have a question and we have 2 minutes, so I think we'll take it from the audience. Our audience asks, when do you decide to move from MVP/POC to the full-blown project? I think we already mentioned the wow factor from the customers. So the moment where our clients really say, yes, I want it, please don't take it away, please make it just better. But do you have any other moments?
Yeah, I'll jump in and say, for us, it really comes down to what customers are willing to pay for it, right? And so that's a big success point for us when we have an MVP and we have a backlog pipeline of customers who want the MVP, and then are excited about what comes next with it. And that cycle is absolutely, critical to deciding when we move from MVP to investing resources to grow the project.
Okay. So not only I really want it as a customer, but I'm willing to pay for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
as always, the money will drive our decisions. All right, we have to wrap up, but thank you all so much. I think the one takeaway that I took from it is just listen to your customers and choose the right people to talk to and the right people to work on your products. And it's been really a pleasure to hear from you, dear audience. If you have more questions to our speakers, feel free to reach out to them on LinkedIn as well. I'm sure they will be happy to chat. Thank you so much, and back to the studio.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Christian from Netguru. I'm the AI consulting lead. It seems that we are on air. Today, I have a very special guest, Henry and Jay. Hello, guys. Thanks for being here.
Hello there.
Hello. So the main topic for our session today is whether you are ready or not for, AI adoption. So before we will jump in, maybe let's do a quick introduction round. Maybe we can start from Jay on my screen. So yeah, let's do the introduction round first.
Well, hello, I'm Jay Hawkinson. I am the Senior Director of Data and Analytics at Lamb Weston. I've been working with data and analytics and architecture for about 25 years.
Hi, and my name is Henri Vinard. I'm CEO and co-founder of Akinova. I've been working on the intersection between data, hardware, regulations, and customer migraines for my whole career. across the world of energy, transportation, and now of financial technology and insurance.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much for being here. So let's start with the first question, because you are already some time on the market, and we have this very big hype boom for the AI adoption. So I guess you're smiling. So the first question to you is, what is the actual importance of cleaning the data? What is the importance of having that prepared before we will start any development? Maybe this is to you, Henry.
Sure. So look, I remember as far as in the 90s doing an enterprise resource planning, not to mention the software implementation across a FTSE 100, and data cutover was the topic of a conversation for not just many weeks but many months, because there's a great tendency to have rubbish in and rubbish out, but because somehow computers put some pretty pictures or some nice words around it, that suddenly people start to believe it. And so the data quality and the governance, and that's also something hugely important around it. Without that, you don't have a foundation. It's a bit like building, I don't know, a giant, and you decide to put some clay feet. You know what happens the first time turns up, right?
Yeah. So what is your perspective, Jay? I guess you previously mentioned also that you have some experience from the manufacturing point of view. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's data quality is one of those foundational pieces that you need to get right. If you don't have it, you get lost in wrong answers. So it gets worse. You think you have the right answer, but you don't, because your data is wrong. There are too many cases that I've had where a simple categorization of a record or something is done wrong and completely change sales forecasts and pieces that are being used to go into an AI type system. Because remember, AI is stupid, if you will, from that respect. It's data. That's their concept of the world. There is no human sitting there saying, well, that number just doesn't look right. It just doesn't happen that way. So it's data quality is foundational, not just to AI, but to so many automation and business processes that we have in play today.
Yeah. So considering that we are witnessing this Gen AI boom, and all those companies or executives are looking for some relevant business cases adoption, and since out of the box, using like large language models may look promising, even like out of the box without any data or with rubbish data. How do you think that Gen AI is changing the perspective of the data? How much this is different than before? What do you think, like currently, when you are witnessing what is happening right now? It can be to Henry, I guess.
Sure. Look, I mean, Gen AI is all the talk in insurance, right? So why is that? Because insurance is made out of contracts. So it's an intangible, right? You have a piece of paper, which is a promise that I may pay you in the future in the event certain bad things happen to you, right? So of course, everybody's looking at it. So there will be a temptation to say, well, if I can analyze lots of insurance contracts, maybe I can interrogate them better and understand better what they say. Or in claims, I receive a whole bunch of different documentation, and then I can assess whether or not your claim is, fraudulent or not, and respond in a more conversational way to you. So it's absolutely everywhere. There's a big conversation around it. I think if I then look at back to the foundations, right, the data quality, is what are you training the models on, and are you putting some rules and some guides around it, so that you don't have some inference of what the model will statistically predict that it should say, based on the information. So let me give you some examples. If you look at for instance, in car insurance, motor insurance, huge premium and fairly fundamental for anybody who's driving, right? If I start to analyze a whole bunch of data and contracts associated with Gen AI and so forth, and try to do some inference of something which is very topical, male versus female drivers, you can infer a whole bunch of things when it comes to the driving style, which actually, when you look at the data and you really understand the data and go behind the data and behind the contract, have actually nothing to do with whether you're male or female. But it looks like it's the case, right? And then the chatbot that then gives you the answer as to whether or not your policy has been endorsed or not, then will give you basically utter garbage. So when you look at that, it's really, really important to really understand the data. And what's scary is when you look at insurance, for instance, very few insurance companies have quite the let's say the governance framework around how those data to train the Gen AI model, plus the information to derive the statistics about probability of losses. And that needs to be bolstered before you start to press the button on let's go in on the sausage machine of creating lots of Gen AI models, to interface with clients and to do a whole bunch of things.
I see. Do you have, Jay, from your perspective, how the Gen AI makes it different this time? What do you think from the data cleanup or data preparation perspective? How generative AI is different?
Yeah, I think that it's different in the case of, again, as I was saying before, is for AI, data is its entire world. It's its perception, its thing. And when we're looking at it, and when we're dealing with the data as we're training these pieces up, we have our own biases that are also coming into the equation here. So one project I had was on a safety project where we were looking for life-altering events. And I was told by the people that were running this for years and years and years, here are the reasons why these accidents occur. And we want you to make sure that when you're doing these models, we're trying to predict this thing from happening. And the reality had nothing to do with it. It was all incorrect. Their perception and what they were reading out of the data was just wrong. And it was partly because of how they collected the data was all based on forms that people were filling out, and everyone who was filling out the form was doing it their own way and using the simplest words as possible because they didn't want to write out the form. So again, when you take a look at this, data is all important for all these pieces that we're doing, and the higher quality of the data, the better pieces you're going to get. And especially, and where you have to really watch out for, is that it's objective, that it isn't just my version of the truth, it is the version of the truth whenever possible.
I see. So in terms of practical implementation, from your perspective, what are key challenges that companies, organizations should consider before they will start with Gen AI or any AI project? What are the key challenges, pitfalls that you witnessed many times, maybe?
For me, what I've seen a lot is that people have this idea that it's a magic wand. It can do anything. They're not looking at the data. They're not looking at the possibility. They're just thinking that this is magic, that you press a button, it all gets done. The first thing is understand it's a process. And even as we're talking about data cleansing and data quality and all these pieces right now, most companies do have decent data somewhere. They're making decisions with it today. So it isn't like what many consulting companies will come in and say, okay, I'm going to spend 5 years helping you clean the data and get you the governance model and all the rest. Now you could use Gen AI. It's not that. There are work areas that you can work on today. But the biggest challenge area that I've seen is culture. For whatever reason, as we've come into this world of ERPs and all the other technology we've put in place, we lost a lot of ability to understand how data flows through processes. When we had different forms and we would pass information from department to department by forms, we were actually in better shape than some of the stuff we're doing today. We have so much automation in place, but unfortunately, because the quality of data is so bad, is because we are making mistakes faster. So one of the biggest challenges, though, is that built-in culture that we have in some of these companies where people are in silos, only see their process and not how it affects anyone else. And this can be problematic, especially as you start using use cases beyond a single department or function.
I see. So what is your perspective, Henry, in terms of the data quality pitfalls, amount of processing, domain, from practical projects?
Look, I think I'll start to think from I think what Jay was saying about, we have lots of data. I think the challenge is that we're drinking from hose pipes of data, right? So it's a little bit like the old age of when people were selling lots of hardware, they were selling you big data. What people in business require and clients, and customers require is small insights, but an insight that matters. So when I look at implementation, first I look at the preparation and whether or not the data are fragmented. So we can, let's assume for the minute that the data have some degree of quality that allows your business already to make decisions. So if you start to understand where are those data repositories, how fragmented they are, sometimes something as silly, you have a European thing with a comma and a US or UK thing with a full stop, for numbers. I mean, something as silly as that, small things like this. Once you understand that puts you into really a great place. So I'll give you an example. I think there was a piece of work done by, I think it was IDC recently, which specifically looked at the insurance industry, right? And it looked at 24 proofs of concept that were basically going through. Only 2 of those succeeded, and that's because they looked at the data fragmentation and whether or not the data were okay. So if you think about from 24 to 2, that's quite something. And if you think about the thing that basically kicked quite a few of those also into touch is the lack of what Jay was talking about, that culture, which is actually going back to the governance. And actually in insurance, because it's a heavily regulated industry, you also have to worry about what the regulator is starting to tell you that you should do. So it does not mean, however, that there are not clear-cut use cases where you can put a financial return on investment into it, and you can basically really have some decent returns. And the critical piece in there, have the data, make sure they're not fragmented, make sure you have a clear MVP objective. Don't change the objective halfway through to start to add a whole bunch of features, which basically it's a bit like a warship. You added so many stuff on the top of the warship, the thing capsizes before it gets to the next harbor. So that's the critical nature of how you actually get to delivering something that makes any sense.
So from the company strategy perspective, because I've met like many companies also from the DACH regions recently, and I see that currently there is this trend for not only chief data officer, but also chief data culture officer. So I was wondering, what is the culture and strategic elements? Those could be potentially 2 different questions, but the first thing, like, what is this data culture? What do you think right now? Like, what is the role of modern leadership in, managing those data? I guess this might be to Jay as well.
Yeah, I think that this is an important thing that all leaders have to take a look at. Culture eats strategy every day of the week.
Yeah.
So whatever culture you have in place is going to make or break any of the pieces we need to do. And if you think that you're going to just dictate to everyone that they're going to change their mindset, you're probably going to be very sorely disappointed in the results. You have to take a look at it. And what I do when I get involved with a new organization is look at the cultural pieces that are there and drive my changes through the culture. So I'm doing the path of least resistance. Sometimes it means allowing people to do things that are a little bit stupid. I don't allow them to do anything insane, but I let them do things that are stupid so that it presents the problem so that they can go after it. So from a leadership perspective and a culture perspective, these are critical elements that you need to be able to tread very, very carefully. The idea of getting people to have the right data literacy and do all the pieces that they need to do, it's easier to make that happen on a system side than it is on a people side. But the people side is where it all starts. So we have to do it carefully, do it within the cultures that you have in place and slowly make changes, as opposed to say, think that you're going to just switch a button and there it's done.
Mm-hmm. So from Henry, from your perspective in terms of strategy, and again, like this is not only what to do, but also what not to do. What is your catch? What is your perspective on this culture case?
Look, I think Jay put it really well. You know, culture eats strategy every day of the week, because it sets the tone. I think we have to be realistic. Human beings like to have their own little way of doing stuff. And I recall again way back when you know, enterprise was planning integrated product management for CAD systems and everything else, and boiling, I can't remember, I think it was 3,500 systems down to about 4. It was all about the change management and what was the context within which people were operating. So that was number one. Number two, it always is about the what's in it for me. I'm afraid that people you know, listen to, if we still had FM as a radio instead of digital, I would say people will listen to why FM, you know, what's in it for me. So if you can understand how it helps the people to actually do their job better, and there's not that perennial fear that, oh, hang on, I'm going to lose my job if I do this or what, you know, whatever it is. And you can basically show what it enables you to do a lot faster and a lot better. Then you have, you know, a piece of the mindset. What you always need to bring back, though, is what are the implications for your business of things going well, that allows you to plan, right? And of things going badly. So I'll give you things going well. So for instance, if I look in insurance, if you can basically either do, for instance, claim fraud detection, and you have a better way of understanding whether it's a fraud or it's not a fraud, that can save a lot of money to the business, which is good for you. But actually, if you think about it, it's also good for the customers. Insurance is, you know, you basically have claims. If the claims go too high, then I'm afraid you have to increase the policy premium and the cost of it. So if you do it correctly, great, everybody wins. If you do it badly, then you get sued, because of course you basically said, hey, my claim is invalid, and now I'm going to sue you because you're not paying me. So in essence, getting the governance right, getting the culture right, and then getting the foundations for that, because there's no going away. Whether, you know, in the 70s and 80s, it dates me here, we were writing algos for decision systems, and then there was fuzzy logic that was in the 90s, you know, fuzzy logic, and now we basically have very large power. Why? Because the compute powers drop like a brick. So now you can do stuff that 10 years ago you thought this is crazy, but that ability, without the right culture and the right governance framework around it, will lead to either incredibly good or incredibly bad outcomes. But, you know, who knows which one is it going to be for your organization? So start from the foundations, make sure that the data repository, the cleanliness, the governance, and so forth are there. Then build from there. Then the next step is you need to think about what's the architecture that you will need to utilize, and I mean technical architecture here, that you will need to be able to take advantage of that incredible power. And with new architecture or different architecture comes costs, and of course comes back to governance, because now you've opened up a whole bunch of things and access to stuff that, you know, GenAI is very good at finding stuff. You know, before that you were searching for 4 or 5 keys, or maybe you use an LP to kind of expand the search around what you mean. But now it's pretty good at finding stuff that you didn't expect it to find, right? So all of these things come with it, but we should not be scared of it. We should embrace it, but we should embrace it with our eyes open on the baseline of what needs to be done. I recall total quality management. Jay, I'm sure you'll remember TQM, right? What is it? It's basically a philosophy that you basically going to think about what's the cost of non-conformance before you do stuff, and you basically build quality in everything you do. Well, you could apply the same principles to what we do now. I mean, we can come up with a new acronym, the 3 of us on this call, and we should probably trademark it afterwards. But essentially, it's the same principles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's critically important, especially when you think about it. We are doing data quality work today. Almost every company in the world does data quality work, but they just don't call it that. In manufacturing, we do reporting consolidation, financial consolidation at the end of the month, which at the end of the day is the human side of trying to clean the data just for the analytical purposes. So I think that you had it exactly right. We can't be scared of it. There are things that you can take advantage of, especially in small buckets. Don't do big bang. That's probably going to not work. Focus on where you can in the areas that you know as best as you can with the data that you could work with. Yes, you need the governance structures. Yes, you need the architecture, technical and business architecture to get it done. Right. But don't be scared of it. You need to take advantage of what we've got and where things are going. But you can start small in areas that you've got real value in and grow it over time as you're building out the strategic foundations you need in place.
Mm-hmm. So to follow up on that, what do you think, how like modern companies, since very often we're saying that the modern companies like will be probably fueled literally by data, right? So how they can empower or train the employees and their skills to take the ownership of the data quality? Are there any practical patterns you witnessed? Maybe this might be to you, Jay, as well.
For me, I've seen it done in different ways, and everything's based on the culture that's in play. Let's be straight and honest. When Henry and I went to school, we weren't taught about data specifically in many pieces. Most business people coming out of college today have way more data knowledge than we ever did and the use of these tools.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have to find ways to be able to bring it out and do it. I personally use it by doing. I love use case development. I love working with the business to get them to do self-enabled tools and understand where pieces are going. But it is very dependent on the culture and how you can get people to learn the pieces that they need to do to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So it seems that we have a question from the audience, from Federico. How can organization identify and prioritize their dirtiest data for cleaning before starting AI initiatives? So this is the first part of the question. I'm not sure whether it's to you, Henry, or you, Jay, whoever can take it. So how can organization identify and prioritize their dirtiest data for cleaning before starting AI initiatives? Where would you advise to start?
I would start from what are you trying to get out of it first, because if you it's back to what we've discussed before in the preparatory call. What's the question, right?
Yeah.
So
What's the
what question are you trying to answer?
Yeah.
That's critical for your business. That enables you to do something that you really want to do, right?
Yeah.
If you start from there, then you look at what the data repository, what data do you have lying around, whether or not they're accessible, whether or not there are some data privacy issues, you throw the whole thing in the mix. And then doing small experiments quickly on those data will tell you whether or not they're actually sensible or not, with knowledgeable humans around them to actually see whether or not the outcome actually is good or not. And then from there, you can just work out which one is really just rubbish data and whether or not you need to buy some, augment it, do something different. That would be my take.
Yeah. And I'd agree. Don't look at your dirtiest data as your prioritization, because what that can happen is you could spend time, you could spend months, you could spend years cleaning up data that is not business valuable. You've got to really look at, again, what is the question? What is the impact that you need to do? Yeah, there are going to be data sets that you do want to use that are going to take the longest period of time. Absolutely. But it's all about business impact. And that should be where your prioritization runs. You will always be able to find AI pieces that you can do in subsets of the data that you have. But just don't look at it as this thing, because data cleansing is not an activity that's a one and done. It is a mindset. It is something that happens. We get it as clean as we possibly can, but especially in the manufacturing space, there's always more data. There's always changing things that are going to change. But focus on business impact and the questions you're trying to ask, and you're going to get to where you need to be.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you for the question from Federico. So basically, probably one of my last question to you is, about the future. So how do you see the role of data preparation evolving as AI technologies will become more advanced? And are there any kind of emerging tools or methodologies in the domain that, let's say, modern executives, organizations should be aware of? So maybe to both of you, to Henry, for instance, as a start, you kind of observing this market from many times. Do you see any trends currently that you would consider that, hey, this is something that could be important for modern companies?
I think the data that you have start to be a pretty good, an even better competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So if you can instrument the right things, and I mean the right things, otherwise you're going to be drowned in stuff again. But if you can instrument the right things and have the right data, it gives you a competitive advantage. And you see that already now with the big, the big known provider, whether Gen AI or the type of AI tools out there, using that in a very broad sense of the word, where people, the cost of developing a new model is largely compute and data and training. So if you have data, that's one thing. Now, if you ask about the tools in the future, well, it's not the future, it's already being used, it's been used for some years now. It's the synthetic creation of data, where you deconvolute from a smaller set of data, a set of attributes, then you create a much bigger set of data that you train your model with.
Yeah.
And there you have to be super careful. It's like, when I was a scientist many years ago, you've defined a little square where your model is working really well. And then somehow you're extrapolating something which is kind of way off the screen, come somewhere, in someone else's house here. And it makes no sense. I mean, it will look great. It will still give you an answer, but it will make absolutely no sense whatsoever. So what I would say, when you look at synthetic data, you can't get around it now, because there are a whole bunch of things where you need to essentially remove some GDPR consideration, whatever, when you reconstruct, for instance, a customer profile, or in manufacturing, if you have certain type of machine tool data and you don't particularly want to share what type of material you use and you want to normalize. So there are a whole bunch of new tools there, but always get back to the basics. In insurance, if you look at our data, you might have 200 years of data for something. Look at that. Look at how the last few years have changed. Climate change is one of those, right? The last few years, is the old model regime still applying to the new regime? Maybe not, right? Things are changing. And then apply again back to the ground basics. And I think it's always worth in developing these new tools to ask the dumb questions, because usually they are not dumb. The only dumb statement is don't ask that question.
Okay, so this is also a strategy. Be brave to ask the questions about your data. Thank you very much, Jay. Thank you very much, Henry. It was a pleasure to talk to you. And if any of our guests, if you will have any question, please feel free to reach us or our guests on LinkedIn. We would be more than happy to answer your questions. And thank you, and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you, Netguru, as well.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to another session about motivation and what's the state of the engineering job market. Today, together with me is George Martins. Hello.
Hello, Mateusz.
So maybe let's start with a short introduction. You're a senior director of engineering at Localize. Can you introduce yourself? What's your story?
Of course, and hi everyone. So yes, I am at the moment senior director of engineering at Localize, and pretty much day to day I work with the product and engineering teams on the people topics like building culture, delivery, like road mapping, also like strategy, of course. On top of my responsibilities, I'm also part of the engineering leadership team in Localize, and also as part of the extended leadership team of the company.
Cool. So, so like you're seeing it firsthand, as well as you're most probably hiring engineers and like being in this process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so maybe let's start with a big question before we will like go into the actual topic of motivating. What are the challenges, obstacles of the engineering teams and engineering leaders at the moment? If you would have a crystal ball and maybe bet on the future of engineering job markets, what is your viewpoint? What's ahead of us? Like we hear a lot about tech winter. Is it already is it already behind us, or is it like we are somewhere in the middle? What's going to happen in the next months and years for the engineers?
Yeah, of course, it's always like a guessing game, but based on what we see already, I think I can share my view on it. And probably the first thing is that I feel that the uncertainty will stick for some time. I think we will need to get used to it. I think that the time that we live after the COVID, it was out of the normal. I don't think that we will see like something like that in the market for the time being. And it's for many reasons. Like I think the first is that we are now starting to see a shift on the industry. Companies went through like the strategies of like growing at any cost to sustainable growth, which changes completely the way they are hiring. On top of that, as all of you know, there was layoffs, and I think layoffs will still happen as a tool to optimize costs and to adjust to these sustainable growth. So in my opinion, I think we will still keep seeing the layoffs as we go. Apart from that, of course, there are the trends. AI, I think, is here and it will stay here. We will still seeing like lots of people looking for AI specialized jobs, such as AI/ML and other functions, both because they are building their own solutions, but also to research or adopt like what is happening in the field. On other areas, I would say that remote work, although we are seeing lots of return to the office and so on, I think that we will still have lots of options there, and it will happen still. But in the end, in terms of the market itself, I think that this is still a good market. I don't think that we will see the numbers that we saw before, meaning that there are fewer offers. It's probably harder to get like that job that you are really looking into, like the perfect job. Maybe also fewer perks in terms of compensation and other perks as well. And in the end, more competition. I think we need to get ready for a more competitive environment. And I'm seeing it already. And I can, for instance, look into the past 3 years. And back in those days, like when we were hiring at Localize, I think it was actually in a very different market where every time we were opening a new position into the market, we were getting 3-5 applications, and the rest of it was pretty much our talent team to reach out on LinkedIn and proactively approach people. Now it's a different story. Like if we open a position on Monday, on Friday, we will get 300 applications. So, and why is that? Because there is more people in the market. And something I see already is some top talent being rejected, which it's a new thing. But still, I think the opportunities are there, and it's still a market to invest. We just need to get used to a different mindset and for bigger competition.
Cool. So this is I hear positivity at what you're saying. So maybe before, because you mentioned quite a lot of potential challenges also for engineering leaders and hiring managers on how to spot the right talent and etc. Maybe before we will venture in that path, you mentioned that now you see 300 people applying for the same position. I guess for many engineers who started their careers, it's the first time they face a situation when when it's harder to get a job. Do you have any as a first of all as a hiring manager as well as a engineer and engineering leader? Do you have any tips for people who are currently looking for jobs on what they should do and how they should, what they should do to land that, maybe not the perfect job, but at least the one that they are aiming for.
Absolutely. So I can give my shot here. So first thing, I would say that you should really take ownership on your career, like on your career growth and so on. And of course, this is not new, but it's more important than ever. Why? Because if we have more competition, I think you really need to be on top of it. And I think part of it is that like the market is now full of people. I remember that a few years ago we were struggling to hire. Actually, we had to go to universities to attract people from the beginning because we were struggling to hire. That was creating as well like more people to go to like crash courses on how to learn how to program like in 6 months or so, which means that those people are already in the market, so even more competition. On top of that, layoffs and all of that, so it's more competition, as I was saying. So first, really take ownership in your career. Don't wait for anyone to actually tell you what to do. You need to be responsible for your own career. And then as part of how to do it, I think having a personal development plan is the basics. And my advice there is always trust on your vision, really understand what drives you, what is your passion, go after it, understand what are the gaps, like what are the things that you probably are missing and are important for you to get that job. Get ready with preparation. So if you are getting a new job, study like the company, study the industry, try to understand what they are using and try to prepare like accordingly. But yeah, those are like probably the standard tips that you will Google and find for it. On top of that, going a bit more personal, I would say that my first advice would be go beyond what is the basics, the fundamentals. I think, especially now with AI, just coding, it's the easy part, right? There is much more than that. So I think my advice is master the skill set, not only the language you use, but really how to build scalable solutions, how to build resilient solutions, how the things fit together, the fundamentals of computer science and all of that. Then about mindset, not only about being good at the hard skills, but like bringing the product engineering mindset, the care about the customers, who are your customers, what are the problems that you are facing, and working with close relationship with product and design to find the solutions. Not only working on the solution space or the problem space, but also on the solution space. Then another advice would be to be adaptable. I think, as I said in the beginning, we will see some ambiguity like still for the time being. So being adaptable, really trying to understand what is important for a given moment and not be afraid of going outside of the comfort zone and learn, like having this growth mindset, I think is more important than ever. Another element, if we have more competition, I think it's also about building a strong network around you. I think referrals are more and more important now when you have more competition. Again, if I receive like 300 applications, it's super hard to go through them. So make sure that you have like good connections, that you are building a very strong relationship with your colleagues. Maybe tomorrow they will help you to go through it. And probably finally, to wrap up, another very important aspect that I always advise people is to work on emotional intelligence. Normally, people don't talk about these things much, but to navigate through like the current situation, I think it's about really not only what you can do with your hands and coding, but also like how do you think, how do you approach the situations. I think that the attitude is more and more important because, again, things change quickly. If you have the right attitude, you will learn the things like quite fast. And that's what companies are looking for, like the attitude, the potential. So work on your social skills. Make sure that you are not like that type of engineer that likes to be on a cave, like with a hoodie, drinking Coca-Cola. Like really be social. Understand as well your emotions. How do you react to events? Like no matter if it's a layoff, no matter if it's like a downturn or so. Try to understand how do you react to the situations and build some resiliency, because you can change the event, but you can change the way you react to it. And like self-awareness as well, like really understanding what are your gaps, where we are, and work on it.
Awesome. Thank you. Maybe just one very very short follow up, like in couple of words. If you would be now like a junior, someone maybe switching career or starting, maybe not after this crash course of on how to write in specific language, what would be like two things, the first major things that you would focus on as a wannabe engineer?
So again, probably the first advice I give, especially to junior people that are starting a career, is be really good at all the things that your team will be doing every day. That's it. And sometimes this is important because sometimes people in the beginning, they start looking into everything. They go into all directions. I want to learn mobile. I want to learn like AI. I want to learn all the things. But okay, you will get there. But before, focus. Really be good at the things that you need to be like mastering every day. And that's my advice. Like, focus. Don't get lost with the hype and all the things that are happening. I think it's important to follow up and really understand what are the things that are being discussed and reading a bit to understand, okay, what's the topic? Is it important or not? But be careful not to go into a rabbit hole of the hype driven. So focus. Awesome. It will be.
So you mentioned also that there's like this shift in dynamics from hyper growth and growth at all costs to sustainable companies. So before we will maybe go into the actual motivation tools, techniques, what engineering leadership can do, I wanted also to pick your brain on the topic of the organization cultures. So I think there was a time, especially before COVID, well, I think it's all started with those images that we saw about, Google, beautiful offices, more like hotels rather, or spa, rather than the actual office. And a lot of companies were building a lot of perks, like a lot of this narrative of we are just one big family. We are going to have fun in the process of having fun, being creative. We will build something of value and possibly win the market in the end. I think with the layoffs, there was a moment of disillusionment, like for many engineers, but not only for engineers, tech workers. There was a moment, okay, like we were a family, and now you're saying me, I need to go. Like what's that? Do you think it's it's a pattern? Like how is it our industry maturing, or what's the shift on the cultures, and what's your take on that point? Will it be like will we get back to this family narratives, or what's the future for company cultures and narratives for the employee value proposition, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally recognize with what you're saying, and I saw it happening in front of me, and I really see a shift from like this family-like culture to more like, let's say, a sports team culture, where probably the big difference is that on the family-like culture, the companies are optimizing for long-term loyalty and like further care and so on, where the sports team are more into like results, excellence and
efficiency.
So on. Exactly. And I think pretty much because of what we discussed in the beginning, like the company is really looking into the sustainable growth and achieving results and being more lean. I think the sports culture is that we will see more and more. I don't think that I think the family is losing a bit, in my opinion, of course. Now, does it mean that it's like a binary thing? Like you need to choose one or the other? I don't think so. Like in my opinion, I think actually you can take a bit of like the good things on one and the other. And I was also like playing sports like for some time, and the best teams I saw like in close were actually the ones that if I go to the locker room, they were the ones like with a strong bond, like supporting each other, of course holding each other highly accountable, but still like supporting. So in my opinion, and what I try to do as well in my teams, is that I think indeed like a sports team mentality is important in a way that we can't forget that why do we exist as a business, like to have the better results, to work in the best way and so on. So like pointing into that direction, doing, making sure that everyone is growing, that everyone is being better like tomorrow, like 1% every day, that we have clear goals, that we are like pursuing them, achieving them, like celebrating them and building this. And while doing it, not forgetting about the people, about like making sure that everyone is equipped with the right culture, with the right environment every day to really thrive. And in the end, if we can take this, ensuring that there is psychologically safety in the environment, where the people can have a learning environment as well, where failing, it's not the problem, it's more about what we do within. I think we can still have a very good culture. Maybe the main difference in the end, like while comparing the two types of culture, is that at some point, sometimes unfortunately, we need to accept that some people don't fit into that culture. It doesn't mean that the companies are not supporting. And for everyone that works with me, I think they know how much I invest in people, and that I'm not the person to give up on people. And that's why, like, I think still we can support people, we can be there to make sure that people are growing, but still looking into the results and why we are doing what we do in our business.
Mm-hmm. So I think you mentioned a very important keyword, so psychological safety, for the teams to even venture and like explore some of the areas of their performance and unblock some of the potential opportunities to grow. So there's a lot of people who there was a lot of said about people who were affected by the layoffs, and like of course like they are directly affected. But I think there was also a toll, and I've seen it also firsthand. I guess you also said that you've seen it, that after the layoffs, the survivors, let's say, are also like having like struggling emotionally, struggling with the psychological safety. And for the leaders, it actually creates maybe not new challenges, but different challenges that they've seen before. What are the techniques, tools as a senior leader that to your fellow leaders that you would give? Okay, how to rebuild this confidence, how to rebuild at least some kind of space where the teams can feel once again safe enough to even venture into okay, I admit that I have some opportunity to grow, and maybe there's some other performance that I need to handle. How do you work with your teams, and what are your secret sauce, secret techniques?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have any secret sauce, but so the way I was looking into like the downturn and like all the events that we went through in our industry, is that first things first. I think that if you are going through layoffs, downturn, and these events, it means that you are also going with more stress, more anxiety. So my starting point is, okay, self-care. Like, make sure that you as a leader are in a good position, that you are really prioritizing things that makes you feel better. It may be sports, it may be like whatever it works for you, but really it's like using the airplane oxygen mask like analogy, right? You are on an airplane, something is wrong, like there is a release of the oxygen mask, and what they tell you is, okay, put it first, like before really looking into other people. And I think it's the same here. As a leader, you must be like in a good position. If you do it, you are also inspiring others to do the same. Like, and if you are taking care of yourself, people will also be invited to take care of themselves. And if we start from here, like, I think we are more set for success to go through like hard times. I think my second advice would be to, again, continue by leading by example, namely how you are reacting to the situation, because people are looking at you as a leader, right? If you are stressed, they will feel stressed. If you are happy, they probably will also smile at you. So try to be in a position that you are like leading by example, staying positive, and like focusing on results, like and the solutions, and not only on the problems. And if you do it, like also the people will feel more inspired to do it. And of course, like leading always with empathy. I think these are hard times, as you said. It's hard especially when layoffs happen, it's hard for the people that is leaving, but also for the people that is staying. So leading with empathy, I think communication is key, like both on being with the right level of transparency, with the right level of detail, and sometimes it's tough. Let's not say that is not, but yeah, communication is key. And here I think that there are like several ways of doing it when we are communicating such events, because they will be important not only for the situation but also setting the stage for what's next. And I think regular communication is super important, like being honest about what are the reasons, because the more people are aligned, the more it will be easy to actually have everyone aligned to what needs to happen to the business. And I think that's important by conducting all ends, like promoting other events such as fireside chats, ask me anything, like sessions and so on. I think it's also a very important moment to reconnect with the strategy, with the vision, and especially when things are going wrong. It's not only about what we want to achieve, but also what we don't want to achieve, like saying no to what is not important, so that people are really focused on what can move the needle. And then from my experience, I think one of the reasons why engineers got really demotivated is when they are not seeing results as well. So I think it's important to focus on what are the next milestones, what are the next things that we can celebrate to actually build some momentum with the teams, and celebrate. Like I think when we go through downturn, we sometimes forget that we are doing good things and so on. So looking into execution will bring like confidence to the teams to actually build morale for what's next, and then also probably. I would say that innovation is sometimes forgotten. Like during these times, we are so focused on other things that I don't think we should forget about innovation. Keep continuing, like investing on like hackathons, like allowing the space for the teams to really try new things and so on.
Be creative.
That's important. Yeah, be creative. Absolutely.
Because like layoff is of course one big event usually, or like it's a moment in time, but then what I think we've seen also, and I've seen it in some of our clients' organizations as well, is that like a lot of companies are struggling, like they are fighting against the tide. So basically, like they are doing everything according to their strategy. They are focused on the engineering side. They're like building very crafted experiences, like technically those are maybe not perfect but close to perfect solutions. But then on the other hand there is a business, and there's a market that sometimes is not as forgiving, and for many teams I've seen, they are like in this, let's say, kind of fire mode for such a long time now, like it's a year or 2 years of fighting. Okay, will we reach our business goals? Like market is very, very tough. But from that perspective of this, like maybe not like a very intense one moment of okay, there's something very serious happening in the organization, but more of this constant pressure. How do you work with your engineering teams? How would you work with your engineering teams if this is not your reality, to be sure that they will just not be burned out in the process of like this long struggle, long fight of okay, will we see the results?
Yes, that's a good question, because yeah, like there is always like some pressure, but the pressure just gets bigger when the environment is like very tense or so on. So I would say that focus is really important, because what happens sometimes is that the teams are really busy. Like they are just having like 2, 3, 4 like initiatives at the same time. And they, with all the context switching, with all the things that, and the penalty of all of that, they end up by being very busy and like overworking, but not seeing the results like fast enough, because the more you do, like the more time it will take to achieve results. And that's my first advice to my managers, is really focus, like drop things. Sometimes I'm the one saying, okay, you're doing too much. Like, what can you drop? Like, what are the one thing that you can do? And I repeat it like until I feel that. And sometimes I even go to their boards and see, okay, like the work in progress is so high, the people will burn out. Like just focus on things. So if I have to name one thing, it will be that, like, focus, reducing the work in progress, and that will allow people to, again, achieve value faster. By achieving value, they feel that they are delivering things. They feel like the recognition, the celebration part, and so on, and that can mitigate a bit like that pressure of that happens in these environments.
Like when we were, talking before the event, and as we still have a couple of minutes, like you mentioned, like, and we talked about this, the leader has this unique position that they can spot that something is wrong with a person. I mean, wrong in a positive way, that someone is demotivated, maybe stressed too much. There are some they're emotionally struggling, and then there's this risk of, okay, how far as a leader I can venture into helping that person to cope with their emotions. Like, to some extent, it's a role of a leader, as you said, like, be this example, maybe, a kind of like, show off some positive emotions, and, they will mirror that. But where is, how to find this right moment? Okay, this is something that, needs to be handled by the professional, and when to back off as a leader. Like, do you also work with your teams on that angle? Okay, how far they can get to, because you said empathy, you said emotional intelligence. Those are the things that, like, where's the boundary?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good question, and sometimes it's actually very hard to understand what is the boundary. But this is how I see it. Like, and actually in Localize we had some training, like from one of we have like a provider for mental health support, and one of the training sessions we had was actually to equip some people in the organization with something that is called like mental health first aid support. And one of the things that we learned there, and I try to apply every day, is really to understand what's the line between what's in the scope of what the manager can do. And there is a lot, of course, like, are you happy like with the scope of work? Do you have any conflict? What is happening? Like, I think that's where the manager can do a huge impact, like understanding how to resolve conflicts and so on. But there is a line where the person is probably struggling already, like mentally, and it may be the cause of a burnout or like anxiety or so, where the managers, let's be honest, like they are not equipped to deal with it because they are not like psychotherapists. They are not like professional granted with that specialization. So, and I think the way I look into it is, okay, what can I do here? Is this like work related? If it is, let's go. Sometimes it's not, and the manager can still like try to help by, for instance, offering like some time off, like for the person to go through the situation and showing like support and so on. I think that's where like the managers can do. When it goes after that, when you see that the person is acting in a way that clearly is not okay, I think the managers should really escalate that to the other like forms and making sure that the person will follow like another type of treatment. But yeah, it's challenging, but we try to discuss openly about if we are seeing like any of those cases, because the first skill that we should master here is actually the being able to see it, right? And because if you are like trained to spot it, you probably can act like earlier.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We're out of time, but I would like to give you just one last space. Like, if you would be to leave our audience, engineering directors, engineering managers, engineering leaders, with one sentence, like key takeaway from for people who are facing these challenges on the market, what would it be?
Okay, it's a tough one. So the key takeaways, I would say that again, focus on the other pieces that are like behind what is coding in our industry, like emotional intelligence, like being adaptable, like get ready to more competition, you must be able to distinguish from like more people right now. So I think that if you work on your attitude and while leveraging these, I think you are more equipped to navigate through both like the competition on the market, but also through what's coming in our industry with AI and all of that. So invest on these, and I think you will find. But I'm a positive person, and I don't believe on those predictions that we are getting out of jobs like very soon. I think AI actually is here, and we need to embrace it. But I think it will start and it will stick for quite some time as a very good assistant that we can leverage, and not so much as someone that will take our jobs like immediately. So use it smartly. By using it smartly, you will be more productive, so you can do more things. You will have space to other things, to invest on more complex topics, and the more you do it, the more equipped you will be to be in the market and have like the dream job.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. Like we are finishing with a hype word of the year. AI is here to stay, and let's embrace it. Thank you very much for your sharing your tips and tricks, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks for the talk, Mateusz.
Thank you.
And welcome back after the break. That was such an insightful session, wasn't it? For those who just joined us, welcome. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Christian Bergman, AI Consulting Lead at Netguru. Hello, Christian. Good to have you.
Hello, Tomek. Thanks for having me again.
And today thanks. And today we'll dive into applied AI in action. So drawing from three cases we've recently delivered for our clients. But first, Christian, let's kick off with an interesting question. What, in your view, is the most significant difference between traditional custom software development and AI-driven software development?
So I would say that in many cases, the process is very similar, in fact, because this is, again, a piece of software, right? At the end of the day, AI is a part of software. But what makes it really different is that we need to get back again to this very solid lean approach, which is experimenting a lot. And the main reason for that is AI is still on the experimental phase, right? We will show a couple of experiments here as well while I'm changing the slides. But basically, the main thing is that since this is, again, technology that is not very commonly used, we still experiment a lot, which makes it really different than the domains that we already knew in mobile software development or web development, backend development even. So again, non-deterministic experimental technology very often.
Okay, so I think that may be one of the reasons that many people are still skeptical about AI's ability to deliver tangible outcomes. However, we would like to share some solutions that not only worked in theory, but also brought some real measurable results. So we'll share partly our R&D prototypes and also some things that we have delivered for our clients. So let's start with the first case. What is it?
Yeah, correct. So as you mentioned, since we often say that this is like Gen AI is still experimental, but there are very practical use cases that we've witnessed during the way since last 2 years, and there are already super practical implementation. And the first one is basically for retail, e-commerce, offline commerce, traditional retail kind of assistance, right? So the problem that we are trying to solve over here is how to provide seamless product support, on a website, right? And we, of course, are all aware about the chatbots. By the way, I'm not a huge fan of chatbots, but this is very specific case where there is the assistant. It can be LLM driven or like AI driven, which makes it really much better than the ones that we previously know, right? So basically, this is a personalized shopping assistant or personalized categories shopping assistant. So it gives the user support on the go and can provide basically category advisory. So whether I'm looking for, I don't know, car rental or multi-cooker or gaming console, it can gives me the assistance on the entire portfolio. It can literally advise me how I can, what's my best fitted, solution to buy. So it's
so
not,
instead, sorry for interrupt.
Yeah.
Instead of like going through filters, because we are used to having filters on the e-commerce, right? So sort it out like from cheapest to the most expensive one. Let me show the ones with the highest ranking from the users. So we can have it, instead of going through the filters, we can ask questions as if we were talking to a person.
Exactly. And like, assuming that you want to buy a vacuum cleaner, so usually you would, like, I don't know, go to me and ask, hey, Christian, I want to buy, vacuum cleaner. I have like 2 dogs, right? A big house. What would you recommend? And I would like ask, okay, so like, do you look for like more like a budget option or like, super premium efficient device? And so this is kind of conversation, as you mentioned, with a human being, right? Not only kind of keywords filtering operations, right? So, and this is where AI with this huge context abilities driven by large language model is very efficient and very helpful and super practical, right?
Sounds like it. After the Black Weeks, Cyber Monday sounds like something that would work. And this is the very easy, simplified chart of how it works.
How we did it, yeah. Exactly. This is like very common, let's say, adoption pattern, which is called RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, very often used for context building around domain with a lot of documents. In case of personalized shopping assistants, the context is usually technical documentation, product cards, manual instructions around products. So we are using that to give you this retrieval around what is optimal solution for you. But also there is this market context, like, hey, I'm looking more for like budget option, and then system based on actual Black Friday, Cyber Monday recommendation. It can gives you, hey, this is like the best fitted budget option for you today, because this is the product that we want to promote. So we are not only retrieving, but basically augmenting the context based on actual marketing strategy of the e-commerce.
Okay, so budget fit sounds very interesting, but I understand I need to provide the budget, or should I connect my bank account to the LLM?
That would be a next step. But if with the virtual currencies, that would be definitely possible. But right now, from the security perspective, we mostly relying on your input on that matter.
Okay. And the next case would be about speech-to-text help desk.
Yeah. Exactly. So that might be a mystery name, but basically the main problem that we are trying to solve is somehow similar, but also very relevant, which is around help desk operations. By the way, we see a lot of Gen AI traction and interests specifically for all kind of support services, help desk, technical support, tier 1, tier 2 technical support, internal technical support, right? So the problem that we are solving here is not help desk itself with the GPT engine or with large language model, but rather assessing and objectively reviewing help desk performance, right? So let's assume that you in your company have already some kind of help desk services with voice, and we want to verify whether it Basically, it's going according to your script. It's what is the sentiment of the person? Are there any kind of actionable insights? What are the key items that people are asking for? What is there, again, like pains and problems that they are reporting? So this is actually speech-to-text system connected with large language model that assessing the actual conversation and summarizing arguments, disagreements, agreements of the person that is calling. So to the person that is like a help desk manager, it allows to verify how the entire help desk is performing. Are they going to according to a script? So if like I'm the product manager or head of technology, I can also get the insights on how my product is performing, what people are reporting. So this is like a high level overview on what is actually happening there.
Yeah, so I can imagine this can be extremely useful for like telecom industry, for telecoms, for insurance.
Exactly.
Well.
So basically everywhere where you have some kind of mobile phone, kind of live voice assistant, right? You mentioned about telcos business, definitely yes. Banking, insurance, right? Hey, I want to claims, some or report some problems. But basically everywhere where we have a help desk services or voice services to the customer, and we want to assess that, we want to verify the actual quality.
Okay, how does it work? Let's see what's behind the scenes.
Yeah, so the original basically idea is quite similar. So there is a text to speech or speech to text, in this case, engine that create the transcription, and then the actual text is analyzed by large language model and compared to actual script. And again, since LLMs are very efficient in context retrieval, it can summarize the information and basically analyze the basic sentiment of what was said by the customer and compare it with some original samples or with original sources. And
okay,
then
so sorry. So the operator here is human, right? So the LLM does the work, pre-work, like the hearing to the complaint, right? Listening to the complaint, analyzing, comparing, and then giving some kind of output or suggestions. Not making decision, but suggestions. What's really happening and what should be the next possible best action.
What should be the next steps. And in this very case, basically, it helps manager to analyze what happened on the call.
Okay. So it helps managers review what was happening and how the customer care went. Okay,
and
great.
On the large scale, it's just super efficient instead of people, supervising and hearing all the recordings by themselves.
Okay, and the third case that we would like to share today is about IC generative product description. So I believe it's again something related to e-commerce.
Yeah, to e-commerce and let's say SEO-friendly content building, I would say. So usually this is specifically for the e-commerce domain. So if there is some, let's say, store with hundreds of thousands of, SKUs of products, usually it is a very big challenge to provide some engaging, product description, and that product description that will be search engines optimizations friendly. So we've also verified to what extent you can automate that based only on very generic keywords. And again, since LLMs were designed to generate content, text content in this case, this is very efficient engine to propose those content to the operator. What is also very interesting is that we verified the actual quality with the companies that are specialized with the SEO content generations. and with the copywriters, and that said that basically this was very, like, it was totally good enough to use operationally, even considering SEO optimization. So for all e-commerces that needs to generate product description, it was super efficient. And the way how it works, it actually can work on, as I mentioned, very raw, very basic product categories description, because if we are offering like 1,000 t-shirts, it's usually we don't have 1,000 unique product descriptions, right? Usually it will be like a color, sizes, brand, some very generic product specification, right? And based on that, like for 1,000 t-shirts, this engine can generate 1,000 unique product description that will be SEO and content or copywriting kind of friendly. And with translation if needed.
Yeah. Like translation is so for like creating many local local languages, right? So
exactly.
Localization, so to speak. Okay, I think we're having 1 more minute. So thank you, Kristin, for this super short but very insightful, I hope, session. It was for me. As always, our conversations are eye-opening. If you would like to know more, find us on LinkedIn, like find Netguru or for Christian or me. We are super eager to jump on a call and explain in more details how does it work, what we've already discovered, what we've already developed. Some cases need to be obviously anonymized, but we can share our experiences. We're super happy to do so. And in the meantime, please download our free ebook on AI assistance for process optimization, when you will also find some insights not only from Netguru but also from the external experts, and I think a good gift for at the end of this year from the bottom of our hearts from Netguru. Thank you, Kristin, for this session.
Thank you very much, Tomek.
Yeah, see you soon. Enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can we hear each other?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yep. Hi, Paolo. Hi, Pascal. Well, hello, everyone. And kudos to all the people that are left with us at this time, because with this discussion, with this panel discussion, we're basically wrapping up Disruption Forum Engineering Horizons for today. My name is Mary. And I'm super happy to host these two wonderful people that are on the screen with me today. I'm happy because, one, we're going to talk about an area that's dear to my heart. I'm a marketer, and I've been marketing staff augmentation for a couple of companies for many, many years now. And now I'm talking to the market, so that's a cool opportunity for me. And I'll see if everything that I marketed so far makes sense, basically. So that's one. And number two, I'm talking to two people from completely different domains. So we have banking on the call, and we have very modern day marketing on the call. So Paolo, if we can start with you, if you can just say a couple of words about Nubank and about what you do at Nubank.
Sure. First, thanks for having me here. I'm Paulo Gomes, software engineering manager at Nubank. Nubank, for those that don't know, we are the biggest Latin America fintech. We are over 100 million customers nowadays. We operate in markets like Brazil, which is our biggest one, Colombia and Mexico. We have around like 80,000 employees, where part of them are in the engineering side, like product manager, software engineer, and so on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about staff augmentation here.
Pascal.
Thanks for having me, Mary. Excited to engage with our viewers today. I am Pascal, CTO at Wowzy. Wowzy is based out of Kenya, and it's the influencer marketing platform for Africa. Please, we're starting from Africa, and we're going to conquer the world out of there. Today, we operate in 21 countries out of Africa, and our platform, you get an end-to-end management for influencer marketing.
Being a marketer, Pascal, I have to tell you that I absolutely love your brand's name. It's just fantastic. It really sticks in your mind. I want to kick off with the basics. And the basics are terms. Words are very important to me, as you can imagine. Is it staff augmentation where you are in your part of the world? Is it team extension? Is it, I don't know, a workforce enforcement or extension or expansion or whatever? How do you call the basically the external talent that you work with from time to time? Starting from Paulo.
It's a good question. Like wording sometimes is tricky, right? Like we as a staff augmentation, for sure, it's like the basis for us. We understand the idea over staff augmentation, but given the fact that we are a company with a lot of engineers, we also have a lot of contribution inside of the company. So then we decided to call more like a types of collaboration. So staff augmentation is one of our types of collaboration. We have types of collaboration that we can just bring people from other team inside of the company or outside of the company. So it's kind of for us just a type of collaboration.
There's some internal names that really don't matter here.
Exactly. Sure. I can say that this is kind of like a category that we put type of collaboration. Then we have like a whole types inside that. Yeah, the names doesn't matter that much, but the point it's like all of them are connected to one kind of collaboration. There is also like these to outsourcing, which is far away. It's a little bit away from staff augmentation. So we also have these with a different name.
Fantastic. Pascal.
Yeah, I mean, at Wowzy, we are relatively smaller than Nubank, for example, and we just say the team, right? It's either the internal team, we have the tech team, and we have the team, other teams in Wowzy apart from tech. So it's mostly just team for us at Wowzy.
This is an approach that I love, obviously, because it doesn't differentiate that much. And I'm guessing that kind of approach helps think of teams, extended teams, as basically part of your company. So that should ease up communication in between different people. And it is communication that I want to touch on at the beginning. As it is one of the greatest challenges, or at least this is what we hear from the market, finding the right language with the provider, finding the right way to collaborate, the channels, aligning on with the culture and everything. So basically, I would like to understand the challenging side of staff augmentation on your end. How do you see it? How do you see the challenges? Let's talk challenges first, and then how we tackle them. Maybe starting from you, Paulo, again.
Sure. Yeah, like a lot of challenges can raise by staff augmentation because you basically are like you need more engineer, right? Or maybe not only engineer, product manager, or even marketing, and you have like some need that you need to grow your team like inside. And the main challenge is usually from people that are already working inside. They might feel like some sort of like, oh, now it's a competition. People from outside are joining my team. So how the performance will looks like, how the deliverables will looks like, how the access management will looks like. So I can see that a lot of challenges here, but I can say that the competition might be the more challenging because this one will affect people that naturally might affect like their performance.
Can I stop you here? Because I'm guessing that this kind of competition is not necessarily the kind of competition that's good for anyone, right?
Exactly. Competition is good, but this one, it's more the team might receive some sort of like, okay, it's another people working on behalf of our company, but from another company that might compete to us, that might be more, have a better performance, and we might not be needed to be here. So this is the thing that it's not a good competition side. Like the idea of competition, like let's build together something good enough for our customers and compete on this, but not on people against people. I think this is the thing that it's a huge challenge.
So we'll get back to the ways to mitigate it. Pascal, what's your experience? What's the hurdle?
I think first, from where I see it, it's mostly trying to make sure that the team has the same goal, right? Similar to what Paulo has just said, there's always that tension when there is an external player coming in. Everybody would tend to think, oh, is my role going away? Stuff like that. Even if people don't say it, you pick these feelings around. And it's usually, how do we get everybody to feel that their role is secure? They are playing as part of the general team. And even when we try to get that help from outside, they are clear that they have a specific thing to do and they do it and go away, so to say.
And the communication bit?
Yeah, communication is critical for us, for example, because the tech team in particular has several layers, right? The output of this team is the input for the other team. So for us, communication is critical. You don't presume anything. We always encourage each other to make sure that we expressly say what we need, where we are, where the blockers are. So communication is non-negotiable, at least at WOWSy.
But have you ever experienced a situation in which external talent didn't really fit in communication-wise somehow?
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I think in my case, or in the couple of cases I've seen, it had to do with cultural adaptation, right? Because we presume that we're all human beings. We always understand things the same way. Some people might think it's just good to go straight to the point, ask your questions, and I have another person who feels like saying hi, hello, and waits for me to answer before I can go ahead, right? It can be very problematic for some people, but very everyday for the rest of the team. So it's usually that expectation. How do I do this? How do I go to the next level? Does the next person understand me? And stuff like that. Once we've gotten that under control, everybody feels like we know the next thing and I should be going to this next point.
And out of curiosity, how long does it take for teams, for the people that you worked with internally, externally, to align with your culture? Like, just this point is interesting to me. How long does it take to be on the same page when it comes to communication and cultural differences?
From what I've seen, it's usually individual centric, so to say, right? Some people I've seen tend to get on it faster than the others. Truth is, I've seen some regions of the world do it a little faster than the rest of them, right? No need to start mentioning names here, but if we get to it, I can say what my experience is. But yeah, usually for the senior people, I find that within 2 weeks, they've already gotten all the stuff that they need. So because, what they need to catch up in 2 ways, the technical aspect of it and the cultural aspect of it. I think you're talking about the cultural. So the cultural at WOWSy will make it a point of duty that community is first. So we try to make them get comfortable culturally. And then personally, I presume that the technical stuff is basic. We don't pick you if you don't think you are good. So we just want you to culturally fit for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So do you have any other challenges that come to your mind? If not, then we can jump to solutions, everything that you've established by now.
Yeah, so I find that one thing that breaks it, because I've been in a situation where the relationship broke, was not managing the expectation. What is the external team B coming into team A to do for us? We presume a whole lot, and when it falls short, everybody starts blaming everybody. So I find that unless these expectations are very clear, it's very easy to, say this guy is not doing what we want them to do and stuff like that. That's what I've seen.
Okay, Paulo. So how do you make it work? How do you make it work when it comes to bringing people together, sometimes from completely different parts of the world, different backgrounds, different experiences? How can you make it work, basically?
It's pretty much aligned with what Pascal said in the way that it's really about like culture, how you receive people and put them in the same page that who are already onboarded. For example, in our case, we have the common company onboarding time for all of the employees, both whether or not they are engineer. So the idea is like how we receive the staff that are for a third party in the same onboard pipeline, I could say, as well as like communicate clear with our team, like our goals. Like we are doing this because of that. For example, we wanted to deliver this feature that will reach out to this amount of customers. It will give this power to our customers, and this is very aligned to our values. So doing this, communicate clear first to our internal team, and second to the onboarding well the staff that we are increasing in our team, in our solution. I think both of them can like tackle well this challenge. This, I would not call this still a risk, but it's a challenge related to competition that we might have between like internal team and I would say external, but in fact they are not external. That's why we call collaboration, because the idea is like if you are bringing, then they are passing through a semi-process of hiring someone. So we are evaluating like soft skills, technical skills. So this is something that it will be already evaluated, but how we make sure that the competition will not leave here this bad competition.
Do you have any I don't know, like team rituals that help engineers, be on the same page and integrate faster at the beginning, especially?
It's an interesting point. We adopt something that we name it like working agreements, which is basically, I would say, like the law of what the team are doing, and it can refer working times to way of communicate, to even like how you open a pull request or how you do review a pull request. With this, we kind of created the idea to let's onboarding people, doesn't matter if they are outside or inside, to these working agreements and like read the out and loud to them and go one by one and make sure that they are aligned with these agreements that we are already setting, as well as like we let everyone open to challenge the agreements. But the idea is like do it transparent and reach out to the team, like raise your hands and ask for the team, hey, does this agreement make sense? Should we behave like that? It's better for everyone as well as for delivering value. So we try to, this is, I would say, kind of the ceremony that we have. We do it actually more often than just in the beginning of the engineers, but I would say that this is very important to put everyone on the same page.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And Pascal, your ways to tackle the challenges we mentioned.
Yeah, at Wowzy, our newbies or newcomers, whether external or internal, there's a standard thing we do with them. We assign you what we call an onboarding body. Mm-hmm. This is a single person that's going to show you around the platform, basically the door you knock on for every single thing you need. Not that you can't go to any other member of the team, but this is the special person assigned to you that catches you up on anything you want to know. And of course, if you're joining tech, any part of the company you are joining, there will be an onboarding ceremony where you get to meet the team leads. So they tell you specifically what they do in their own part of things. So you get the whole picture and then fit in very easily.
I'm just looking at the screen and I see that we have some comments and questions from the audience. Yeah, let me just start with this one from Federico. So basically, expectations and cultural communication differences, which must be overcome and aligned with, sounded like it's an important part. Do you take these two into account when choosing who to bring in for staff augmentation? And how do you evaluate it to ensure it will work? Yeah, you touched on it a little bit, Pascal. But without getting into too much detail, basically, how do you approach these differences when thinking of your suppliers?
Personally, I try to make sure I have a session with anyone who is joining us. Like I said, the technical abilities, I tend to take them for granted. There are so many technically savvy people out there. It's that unspoken cultural possibility that I try to listen very closely, and also get the person to speak with members of the team so that they share what they feel, not just what they feel or, being too subjective, but what do they see given what we know are our values at Wowzy.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to add to that, Paolo?
Yeah, like it's this is I would say that this is the crucial part when we took teams, because like there is one also important part when we evaluate staff augmentation as well as the teams. We evaluate like risks. We evaluate something like how we avoid Conway's law on our organization. How we make sure that we were really going to integrate them in the way that our architecture will be stable, as well as we are going to escalate. But there is this other side of the coin, that how we evaluate, how we ensure that this will work. We try to evaluate a lot of soft skills with those teams that we are evaluating. For instance, like we have one of our main pillars here. It's like we want that our customers be fanatical to us. So to make sure this, when we are evaluating the companies or engineers or product managers, we try to understand from them, like, are they like a customer centric? They will look forward to our main goal, which is like deliver this to our customer. Doing this, we can like assess how we shape better the communication. So I think like with this proposal that they have, like we can like make sure that we are working like towards the same communication way. But of course, we will challenge cultural difference, and then it's about to feedback loops to make sure that if something goes that it's not right, let's step back and make sure that we align with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, cultural differences are there, and it's exactly. I mean, that's exactly the reason why having diverse teams gives you a broader perspective. So basically overcoming the challenges that stem from that is just a matter of communication. It's just a matter of how hard we try to, to communicate better. It's funny what you said. I was thinking that you should have this kind of assessment about assessment of how far or how big of a fanatic a potential employee, a potential external talent may get about a product, basically, or a project. You need to be a fanatic to work at Nubank. I love it. Because your clients are basically fanatics, and so it seems. Listen, I want to talk about experiences, but these experiences that are best to talk about, the best stories are about what went wrong, basically. So I want to hear some collaboration nightmares from you. Anything that comes to your mind.
Okay, I think I have one. Not the best situation to be in. I remember having a deadline for a feature to show up, and I had I think it was just a sprint worth of time, and suddenly one of the members of the team who was not who was onboarded externally let us know that they were not going to be available this part of the week, and suddenly they also took an unplanned leave. I mean, I felt like something was running away from me that was important that I couldn't hold back, and it really, really changed my view around getting external teams to join without having very clear SLAs on what we want to achieve, the time we want to achieve it, and stuff like that. So that's why my experience now is we get clear on these things so that, I mean, you don't leave me halfway into the battle and suddenly I feel lost. It's a very terrible place to be.
But I'm thinking that these things, like for example, sick leaves, like we're all human, these things can happen probably and happen on a regular basis. So what your expectation towards a provider would be if a member of your team, if the talent is not available?
Yeah, I guess I had that challenge because I didn't work as part of the team that started this collaboration, right? Of course, sick leaves are non-negotiable, right? I mean, you might wake up, you're just not feeling good. All you need to do at Wows is just let us know, let your team members know. But that wasn't the case at that particular time. It was actually a leave over a number of days after saying I'm not able to come in every day of the week. I'm able to do, say, Mondays and Wednesdays and stuff like that. So maybe it was just me who didn't go through the SLA, what was expected and stuff like that. But it was working a particular way, and suddenly the total amount of time the candidate was available drastically dropped. And not just that it dropped, because I mean, these things happen, but at a very critical point, I felt totally betrayed at that point. And going forward, I just made sure we all understood where we are going and what we could do, what we could not do.
So building on what you can't do, I'm wondering about some like absolute don'ts when it comes to staff augmentation. When you're considering this type of service, when you're considering leveraging external talent, what's a don't, like a number one don't for you?
Working without an SLA. We won't try to get someone simply because it looks like we need an extra person. No, we are getting X because we have A, B, C to cover. We have to be very clear about it. And then we say what timeline we can work with. We understand things could change, right? But at least there should be an estimation. Paulo will understand that it's usually estimations, right? You can't just knock it on the sand of time or something like that. But that estimation is the bare minimum you can give us.
Absolutely. Paulo, do you have a don't?
I would take this from Pascal and say that the other don't, it's like if the time of like onboarding the staff will be bigger than the time of delivering. So I suggest to like step back and think in other way to work with that. For instance, you have like a 6 months project, a very complex scenario that you need to do a lot of calculations, and then 4 months is the time to onboard them. So doesn't make sense to onboard the 4 months. Try to reach out to this deadline. It will only overload your own team and maybe increase this level of uncertainty to deliver. What we can do instead, like setting these deadlines, like the clear expectation, as Pascal said, maybe not putting there in the core if you need to optimize your deliver, but maybe finding places where we can fit then with like a less time of onboarding, where they don't need like a huge company core context, and then they will only like be the drivers to make sure that your team will be more enabled to deliver. So I think it's like one layer more on this Pascal point of view.
And looking into the future, do you think staff augmentation, generally, whatever you call it, talent, team extension, or basically working with external talent, is it going to gain in importance or not? Is this complexity in the market going to rise or keep on growing? Or is it going to be a case of maybe hiring more people soon? Like, how do you see it?
That's a very good question. Of course, like it's an idea of the future, but given the fact that we are now in this huge wave of AI and we need like from yesterday, someone with a huge knowledge background about this. I think it tends to grow because it's not this divided work as outsourcing that we just like close your eyes and let someone deliver for you, based of course on some achievements, but instead you bring like knowledge to your company. So I have shouldn't I guess, but I guess based on what it's happening now, that it might or grow or keep like very stable, mainly for this very difficult knowledge that doesn't make sense sometimes to hire internal. Imagine you need a project for 6 months, 1 year to do something with AI, and then it's one way to go. So it makes more sense like bring someone external, let them like help your team. They will also help to teach your team, and then they will go to working other projects. So I think for the company efficiency and the budget side, that there is an idea that might grow in my point of view.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on that, Pascal? Where is the future for companies like Netguru? We're basically, very much interested in hearing if we have a future for this kind of service.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a feature. I think the bigger the organization, the more likely this is. In tech, you just can't achieve everything by yourself. It's usually collaboration. Like Paulo said, there might be a skill you need just for a while. It doesn't make sense to fully hire for that role. You can just get an external person, do it for you, clear terms, and then you go. Yeah, I think there's a very clear need for that. But I think it would be on an organization by organization basis, and the bigger the organization, the more I think there will be need for stuff like that. Because there will be so many projects going at the same time that you don't want new guys or just short time stuff.
It's super interesting to me also to witness. We're lucky to witness the AI revolution, and we've already seen we are seeing this hype, but we're also seeing a kind of reckoning and an understanding where people with their unique experiences, previous job experiences, projects come in handy, and where they can, bring value other than, simple AI assisted, basically AI-driven optimization of any kind, and efficiency gains, basically. To me, right now, for the time being, we have these AI-driven efficiency gain and the human-driven value that's still there. We'll see for how long, basically. But that's a topic for another conversation. Do you have anything you'd like to add for the ending of this discussion on staff augmentation?
I would like just to say that one thing that I see as a very important as an engineering leader, it's like before you try to organize how you set your organization, try to make sure that your most experienced engineers, CTO, they will define clear the architecture, and then your architecture will be proven from the organization. It will be like an organization proof, because organizations, they are all changing, but while you do some kind of architecture that it will scale on behalf of your goals, it's the way that you can change how you organize your team. Sometimes you might have more staff augmentation, sometimes less, but you will keep walking towards your company goals. So I think this is crucial for these days that we might need to change how we organize the people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for that last comment. And thank you for talking to me today. Super happy we've met. Thank you for having this opportunity to talk about staff augmentation. And thank you to all our attendees for being with us here today. You're very welcome to join more disruption forums. There are plenty of disruption forums coming up next year. I think we're starting in February, so we'll keep you posted. Thanks a lot for today, and have a wonderful afternoon wherever you are.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.